Welcome, everyone, to Awaken Your Voice. My name is Rush Dorset, and in this series, we're bringing together vocal experts to talk about what it means to awaken our voice and tap into authentic expression, whether that's for singing, public speaking, or another kind of creative expression that resonates for you. So, we have a very special guest today. Heather Lyle is joining us, and she is amazing. She is a leading voice teacher for singers and actors. She teaches privately in her studio in Los Angeles and also Zooms on the interwebs with students across the globe. She's also taught at multiple universities in the US and abroad. And she has a bachelor's, a master's in vocal performance. She has several postgraduate degrees. All of those details are here in the interview. I recommend that you read about her certificates because it's pretty fascinating, and we'll talk about it more here in this interview. And then finally, I can't say enough, but Heather is also a professional singer in her own right, has had a really incredible career, sings in every style, including jazz, blues, musical theater, pop, and opera. She's recorded for movie soundtracks. She's performed at venues around the world. So, Heather, it is an honor to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you about
Oh,
stuff today, voice stuff.
about voice stuff, the stuff that we do. Yes. And it's so fun for me to introduce you because you just have such an amazing, rich career and so much wisdom to share with us today. So I know that we're all in a lot of gratitude around that. And I'd love to start with you've developed this incredible method, the Heather Lyle Vocal Yoga Method, which
Yeah,
is a very unique way of approaching voice and teaching voice. So I'm curious if you could share with us more about that method. Perhaps you could share some of your personal story as to how it has evolved and how it's become what it is today.
absolutely. So I have been practicing yoga since I was 14. My father actually lived in an ashram in India for 17 years. So I grew up around a lot of yoga philosophy. I also decided at 3 years old I was going to be a singer. So what did I do all the time? I sang and I did yoga. And then one day I started singing while doing yoga, and my voice changed, but also my body released more in different places. And I thought that was so interesting. So this led me to start to play just for myself with a practice of sounding and yoga. And it actually turns out that many of the original yoga teachers did use sound with their work. So that was interesting to discover in my research. So vocal yoga, what is vocal yoga? So vocal yoga is actually using yoga to open up the voice, but also finding that when we open the voice, there's changes in the body. And how I came about this is I started playing around just with calling and yelling and making loud sounds, especially when I was studying opera. I realized that I needed to make a loud sound, and it had to just be a primal sound. It couldn't be necessarily something beautiful. Sometimes I actually found trying to have a beautiful voice actually restricted my voice. So I just needed to find out what was the core primal part of my voice. And this actually led me to start exploring yelling. And so I ended up becoming a Fitzmaurice voice work certified voice teacher, which is voice work for actors, where we teach yelling and screaming and all sorts of different things, but in a very healthy way. I often discovered that when I went to recitals, I would see someone who was very huge and they big, beautiful body, and they'd go to sing, and a little tiny voice came out of their mouth. And I was actually it was interesting. I was at a Nats recital, if anybody doesn't know, National Association of Teachers of Singing. I was at a Nats recital, and there was like a 6 foot tall mezzo soprano woman singing. And she had this little voice, it was beautiful, beautiful, very cultivated. but it was small and she was huge. And so a man I happen to know, Vladimir Chernov, who's a famous Russian baritone, and he teaches here in Los Angeles at UCLA, he was doing a master class that day. And he said to the woman, okay, just yell. And she couldn't yell. She went, oh, and he'd say, no, just yell. Oh, yell. And he chased her around the room. I'm telling you, he made her do all these things. This poor woman, I felt for her. But she couldn't yell. And then he pointed me out in the audience and he said, everybody needs this book. You all need to find the primal voice before you even go to sing. And I thought that was interesting because that's what I was exploring. And so it was very embarrassing that he did, that he singled me out, but it was nice as well. So that led me going down this road of yelling and calling and seeing how that affected the body. And then I studied with Ingo Tietze in his vocology program at the National Center of Voice and Speech in Utah. And he was talking about how they're seeing a lot of vocal cord weakness in the labs now from people because people aren't talking. First of all, everybody's on their devices, and then nobody's yelling. And the voice was actually designed to call across fields, to call in the animals, to call for someone, to call for help. And we, in our society, we don't really do a lot of calling. Wow. So that was really fascinating. Mm-hmm. So what happened is I ended up developing this method, and I began looking at bodies, and I just looked at students and people. And when I teach a class, I usually pick somebody in the class to lie down on a table, and we just watch how they breathe, and where there's expansion in the torso, where there's holding in the torso, what's free, what isn't. And then I thought, well, I better study breath, and I discovered that breath in most people is erratic. It's not necessarily deep and abdominal with some rib swing like we want for singing. That only happens when we're in our parasympathetic relaxed nervous system. Most of the time, we are not walking around in our relaxed nervous system, especially when we get up to sing in front of people. So as singers all know, a big part of learning to sing is being able to get your breath deep into the body and relaxed, and everything free and relaxed here. So I thought, how can I help the body do that? So then I looked at all the fight or flight muscles in the body, because we don't breathe freely a lot of the time, because all day long, without knowing it, our little amygdala in our brain is scanning for danger. So even though we're not aware of it, the minute we walk out the door, we're looking for danger. And the way the body responds is some muscle bracing and breath holding, and then it lets go. And then we brace something, and then we let go. Brace, let go. This happens all day long. We're not usually aware of it. Often when we do that, then we get home and we've got tight muscles in our neck and shoulders, right? And the throat, it gets tight. And when we hold our breath in that way, when our sympathetic nervous system goes into fight or flight or freeze, the vocal cords close. So people can have tension happening in their vocal cords and they're not even aware of it. So they're right there with yelling. You can't have tension in your throat and yell. So I started exploring how to open up all the fight or flight muscles. And for fun, I'll run through them really quickly.
Oh, please. Yeah.
Again, these affect our body every day. We're completely unaware of it. So the first major fight or flight muscle is actually the jaw, right? We hold a lot of tension in the jaw. And the temporalis muscle up here, if you put your hands up here and open and close your mouth, chew, you'll feel it moving. Because this muscle is involved in opening and closing your jaw. So we can get headaches from tight jaw. So we bring our hand down here to the jaw, and this muscle is the strongest, this masseter muscle in here is the strongest muscle in the body. Why? Fight.
Mm-hmm.
Ourselves, or when we had to eat raw meat and bite animals. But we have a reflex every time we're annoyed, and you'll see it in actors use it a lot, where you'll see their jaw tighten when they're mad. Every time we get a little annoyed, it's like, ooh, I'd like to bite you. Ooh, why can't I bite you? So this can tighten.
Interesting.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we can have a tight jaw and we have no idea why. So it goes off, it gets triggered a lot. The next part is the neck, right? Neck and shoulders. The reason why, first of all, this area wants to harden, and the vocal cords, their first job is a valve to protect our airways. So not for singing. Their job is to close, to protect the airways. So this area can get tight in response to closing, and the accessory muscles can get tight. And then this whole area, the reason why it reacts is this reacts so that our arms become very awake so that we can block or punch. So we need these muscles to shorten, which is not great for relaxation. We want lengthened muscles for relaxation, but they will shorten and get active and ready. So we hold a lot of tension in here. Next place where we hold a lot of tension is the core, the solar plexus. The reason, I mean, of course, in the society, everybody pulls their abs and so they look good, but also this is a major important part of the body. And if I were an animal and I were to attack you, I'm going to go for your throat or your abdomen. Everywhere else there's bones. I can't hurt you because of the bones, but I will go for the belly or here. So we unconsciously harden this area. And often people will have intestinal issues. And when we harden this area, it also can affect the lower back. So reaction all day long, you can be tightening your lower back and have no idea. And then what I found fascinating, which we now know really affects the voice, is the psoas muscle, which runs in the groin area. It's a major muscle that attaches your legs to your body. The psoas muscle shortens every time we have that startled reaction happen. It shortens and then it lets go. It shortens and it lets go. And when it shortens, it creates, because that muscle starts in the groin area, it comes up, it goes behind the abdomen, comes up and attaches into the diaphragm and the spine. So when this muscle is short, people can feel like they can't get a deep breath. They don't know why, but they just can't get their breath deep. It's a super important muscle to stretch. And it really changes the voice when you stretch it. And why does it shorten? So that your legs can get ready to run or kick. So we have this going off in our body all the time. We know that from any sort of physical threat, like if you're driving and a car is about to drive into you, that will do this and then let go. And that's pretty obvious to people. But what is not obvious to most of us is there's also an emotional reaction. So we react this way from emotional stimuli as well as physical stimuli. And that's pretty scary to think about that.
That's amazing, because obviously most people are not trying to run away from a tiger on the daily basis, but maybe they are stressed out about something their boss said or a deadline or something like that. And then the psoas is getting tight, and then showing up to sing or speak in front of a group, or lead a meeting. I mean, it could be applied in so many different areas. There's that small voice, and why? So Heather, how do we get unstuck if this is becoming such a habitual patterning for people?
Yeah, that's a great question. How do we get unstuck? I believe through, first of all, breath is the very first thing. We have to become in touch with our breath, and we have to be aware of the different ways that it reacts. And we have, most everybody who's studied singing has learned about clavicular breathing, which is upper chest breathing. This is the breath that we take when we're in our sympathetic autonomic nervous system, fight, flight, or freeze. We'll just breathe here. You'll have students come in and you'll notice They can't breathe here. They can't. So we'll talk about their nervous system and I'll have them switch their nervous system and then they can switch their breathing. But we've got clavicular breathing and then we have breathing from the middle of the body, more in the middle of the body, and then we have deep abdominal breathing. And something that I use a lot to show the difference is I'll have everybody do chin mudra, and this is what people do in yoga to meditate. Also, if you do this mudra, it helps you soften your belly. So just notice that, everybody. Going to feel your breath drop. So I will use some different yoga and meditation things just with a client that comes in, just to get them to drop their breath and to see the difference of having the breath here or having the breath dropped in. And I had a really interesting experience yesterday. One of my students in a class I was teaching, she said that she realizes that she doesn't give herself breath. She's always taking care of everybody else, and she never stops and just allows herself to have a deep breath. And there's probably a lot of people out there that are like that, where they don't take the time to allow themselves to have that breath, to receive breath. So that was a really beautiful thing she shared that really struck my heart. So how do we open up some of these parts of the body? Do you want to do some exercises?
I would love to.
Okay, all of you watching, it is vocal yoga, so hopefully you're wearing some comfy clothes. If not, you're in your own home and nobody can see you.
Yep. I'm wearing comfy clothes.
Good. So the first thing I usually start with is some head and neck stretches. And I have in my new book, I have a new book coming out, which is Vocal Yoga, the Asanas, which is all of these exercises. I have 27 shoulder and neck and head release exercises.
Oh, good.
I became obsessed with those sort of exercises. So I researched through speech therapy, physical therapy, and yoga, these different stretches. So one that I just really like to start with which most of you probably done, is drop your head to the left and take your left hand and just rest it gently on top of your head. And normally in this pose, we take our other hand if someone wants and wrap it around, and you can do that if you want. If your hand doesn't reach all the way around, that's okay. But while you're here, it's super lovely to hum into the neck. And actually, sound helps you release muscles more. So just do a nice, gentle hum and sense it going actually into the side of your neck. Mm. 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 And you can play with pitches. Play with different pitches, and then to bring your head up, actually use your hand, because starting out, that could be a strong stretch for a lot of people. Release your arm, and then we're going to drop our head to the other side. Bring your hand up. And you just rest your hand here, which just gives you a little extra stretch. Be gentle, always gentle with the neck. If you'd like, you can wrap this hand around, or something that's really nice is also to put your hand on your neck and hum, because many of us are unaware that the vibration when we hum actually goes into the spine. So let's have 3 nice hums, any pitch, near speech level. Mm. And one I didn't do on the other side, which I meant to, is actually take your nose down and put it towards your armpit and hum again. Mm. Mm. Use your hand to bring your head up. Did you feel that? Did you feel your spine
My
vibrating?
gosh. See, I love the cues that you offer because I was paying attention to the sensation in my neck, but not my spine originally. And then when you opened my awareness to the vibration moving through the spine, I felt it all the way down my spine, all the way down to the sacrum. And it was very calming and very therapeutic. I felt my belly release and relax as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
It does go all the way down the spine, especially if you have good interoception, which is being able to feel inside your body. But that
Mhm.
is actually a advanced yoga practice to sound down the spine, and it's amazing. It's an amazing meditation. So
Ooh.
any of you can play with that sometime, where you start this way and then sound down the spine. Okay, pretend we did this stretch on the other side because we won't have a lot of time.
Mhm.
Okay, the next one I love, I actually learned from a chiropractor, which is with the nose, we're going to draw an infinity symbol, which is an 8 on its side. And this gets into the little tiny muscles at the skull. So it's just like this. Little teeny muscles. You'll notice you're drawing an 8, and you can add a little hum. Mm.
Mm.
Mm. So it's different for from some bigger stretches. And then normally we would go and probably do a whole circle of things, which let's actually just do a few of those with a hum. Mm. Mm. My very favorite neck exercise I'm going to show you guys. This I learned from a speech therapist. So you're going to take one hand and you're going to rest it, just put it on the side of your neck. And this is going to sit here and be completely passive. And then you're going to take your other hand, and with your other hand, you're just going to start out pressing in. And you'll feel a bit of a stretch right there. And then this is myofascial work. So in myofascial work, you actually want to stretch the skin. I use myofascial work as well. So what we're going to do is then you're going to use the top hand and you're just going to pull really slowly down on your skin. But of course, muscle's going to come with it. You're going to come down to the side of your larynx as you slowly pull down. And this really gets into the sternocleidomastoid, the big muscle that you see here. And then we're going to come all the way down into the collarbone where the sternocleidomastoid inserts. I'm an anatomy junkie.
I love it.
This is amazing.
Oh my gosh, I'm so relaxed right now. Oh,
Doesn't that feel good?
wow, it feels so good.
We have to do the other
We
side.
have to.
And your sternocleidomastoid is this big muscle. It's actually nice to pinch it.
Yeah.
But this is my favorite, one of my favorite things of all time.
Oh, this is so great. Wow.
Relax your hand, press in a little, just by pressing in a little, you'll feel a stretch. You're also getting into the platysma muscle, which is like a collar in the front. And as you pull down, you may feel this in the jaw because this also gets up into the jaw. And it gets up into the jaw in a little bit different way than we usually get into the jaw because the platysma muscle inserts up into the jaw, and a tight platysma can cause you to have jaw tension. Who knew?
Mm.
So just slowly pull down.
Mhm. You know, they talk about how it's important for singers to have awareness of anatomy. And that concept is really clicking for me right now, especially because I can have so much more awareness of these small muscle groups and the way that my body is holding tension and releasing tension, which I can
Mhm.
see how much that would help with resonating the sound and sending sound in a very intentional way through the body.
Yeah, so the first thing that I have all my students do is I have them, we do some exercises, some theater exercises, which exposes where they hold, what fight or flight muscles engage, where do they hold tension, where are they reacting, and where is it in the body.
Mhm.
And they can curate a program for themselves of exercises that they'll do on a regular basis so that when they go to sing, those areas are open. And what's the first thing that happens when we walk out on stage for most people? Fight or flight kicks in a little bit. If
Yep.
you experience it kicks in a little bit. So if you know it, you're like, oh yeah, okay, there's my fight or flight kicking in. Let's switch it to parasympathetic
Mm.
and switch our nervous system, right? So I have all my actors and singers actually breathe with this mudra because this changes your mood, your whole nervous system to parasympathetic. So I have them switch their nervous system, which is really important. Okay, then something I think is really important that everybody should do is in their beginning is to do the lion. Do you know the lion? This is where your hands are like this and your eyes are up towards your third eye. But the main deal is you're going to stick your tongue out as far as you can. And the cool thing about sticking the tongue out really far is the anatomy of the tongue, the fascia of the tongue goes from here down through your chest. The whole diaphragm is part of that fascial line. It comes down through here. It goes through the psoas, down the leg to the big toe.
Mm.
Thumb and your big toe are connected. So some people, when they stick the tongue out really far, you may feel your abs or psoas or something engage, and that's good.
That's
Okay,
so fascinating. I love that you're bringing in the fascial lines.
fascial is that's also part of my work is the fascial lines.
It's so
So
fascinating.
so spread your fingers, look up, stick your tongue out as far as you can, and just go, ah.
Ah, ah.
Do it a couple times. What you're looking for is when your natural support kicks in, you'll feel like you can go a long way on your breath. So really reach with the tongue and let this be raw. This is just
Okay, are we making a primal sound?
total primal.
Okay, okay, great. Let's do it.
No singing. Okay.
Okay, good.
Just ah.
All
One.
right.
Ah.
Ah.
No singing at the end either. All the way.
Ooh, I know. I had the temptation to bring in some vibrato.
I mean, you can do that. You can,
Uh-huh.
but you do want to play with the primal aspect too.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, quick question. Do we
Sure.
want to keep the abdomen, we want to keep it nice and relaxed and just be aware of how it's supporting the sound?
So that's a very good question. What I want you to be aware of, first off, breathing is going to be abdominal. Well, there's always this thing, is it rib swing first and belly first? What's happening in our belly? In voice science, we learned first off that everybody breathes differently, and secondly that because all our bodies are different, and then secondly that the bottom rib swings when the belly comes out.
Yep.
It's really hard not to get your 10th rib, which Richard Miller called the 10th rib. It's really hard to not let that move. You can't breathe if that doesn't move.
Mm-hmm. And for listeners, Richard Miller was a vocal pedagogy. That's what we're referring to.
It's a teacher of mine, yeah.
Yeah.
So you want to explore that. I mean, you can do a whole class just on that and exploring this, how this rib moves. So I want you to breathe that way. Now, let the support happen as it happens. So it's a really good question. I don't want you to think about supporting.
Yeah. Okay.
So most of these things will make you support. It will support naturally. And part of the work is to uncover what is the natural support of the body. So D. Ralph Appelman, who was an incredible pedagogue at Indiana University, in his book, The Science of Vocal Pedagogy, he says that the whole core acts as a sphincter controlling exhalation. So there's all of these muscles in here that are involved in respiration and singing. So speaking of which, let's unwind them. So we're going to do a spinal twist.
Great.
So take your right hand and put it, let me move this down a little bit, and put it on your left knee. This is one that I love to do. And then you're going to you'll walk your fingers behind you, but don't go too far yet. And then when you go into a twist, you always lengthen your spine upward as you turn, which is what we're going to do. But I want you to make a raw primal wah. And why a wah as opposed to an ah? Or it could be an ah. Or if you're in another country, what is your most neutral sound? That's what I want you to go for. Why with a W? Because if we just do an ah, it can get stuck in the throat. We can do a glottal stroke with that. So with the W, which is, I'm dropping the names of a lot of different types of work. The accent method is a speech therapy method, and they believe in using W's in front of everything to stop glottal attacks. So I really got into that, and I love just doing wah or wah, whatever you gravitate to when you go into this turn. And no singing. This is not singing. You're just yelling, okay? And you're yelling, calling. I don't like to say yelling because people will try to yell from the throat. Your body is your temple. So you never want the voice to get out of your temple. You don't want the voice to get out of your body. It will go on its own. It'll go on its own. So, and then in voice science, they say less than 5% of your voice gets out of your body. So it really doesn't, much of it doesn't get out of your body. So in that way, just make a wah, but it will feel like it's moving because it is a sound wave, and enjoy the experience. Okay, so we're going to reach up, hang your jaw, hang your tongue, tongue touching bottom teeth. And we're just going to reach up, and as we turn, we're going to go, wah, and then you come out of it. And then once again, reach up and go. And just make a raw wah. And go as long as you can on your breath.
All right.
I'm going to watch you this time.
Okay. So here we go.
How'd that feel?
It felt so good. It felt so easeful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed, kind of like what you were saying before, I noticed support from the low abdomen, especially as my body was beginning to twist those, what you were saying about all the muscles, the obliques, the back muscles, everything. I felt them engage, but they were not tensing. They were just coming online to support, and the sound was just spinning and easy. So I can personally see how I could apply that. Let's say if I'm singing a song or wanting to feel a lot more free on certain pitches or in my belt register or something, to use that kind of sound.
Yeah, and then you can actually sing with this, but best to start out just every day we wake up, our voice is a little different. So it's nice to just wah it out.
It out.
Let's do
That's
this.
gonna be my new morning mantra. Yeah, I know that so many people have questions about like how do I warm up my voice properly? What do I do? So just this is such a great starting place to
That's
get.
how what I feel. And then you can get into your vocalises and things.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
have to do the other side though. You
Okay,
have to
let's do it. We'll have to get balanced out.
gonna reach up, go as long as you can on your breath and twist as much as you can.
Okay,
So
great.
twist in, like bring
And
out
and
forward.
does the chin just stay over the heart, or are we twisting the
Keep your
cervical
chin over
spine?
your heart. Yeah,
Okay,
you
great.
doing it just right. Yeah, we don't want to twist the larynx.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll do one with you too.
Okay, we'll do it together.
Okay. Breath, twist. Wah.
So much breath support.
Breath.
Wow. Yeah, it didn't have to feel like I had to get a big breath or push the breath. It was just like sustaining, extending that breath.
Yeah, that's what I call when you kick into the natural support, and then the tone feels so grounded
Hmm.
and rich. There's
Yeah,
a
it
rich
does.
tone that happens.
Hmm.
Yeah. So this is great, especially if you have a student who is having trouble finding just their whole voice.
Yeah.
You're
I
just
can
doing,
see how this would be amazing for, I mean, both singing and speaking. For
yeah.
somebody that's about to be on stage or lead something and they're wanting to find that fullness in their sound.
Mhm. Absolutely. Let's do something else. What do you think?
Yes, let's
Or
do. This is so fun.
this you can do in a chair, but I'm going to do it on my hands and knees. Now, if you're in a chair, what you would do is you're going to come forward. So one of the problems with being upright is our abdominal muscles that are involved in support. They are also structural support muscles to hold the body up. So a lot of times they forget, the obliques and the transverse abdominis forgets that they are two major muscles of exhalation. So, and we use them, sometimes we use them for voice, and that means we're supporting our voice. And then sometimes we don't use them for sound at all. And then that's troublesome, can be troublesome, because we don't have control of our exhalation. Okay, so in a chair, what you would do is you're going to lean over and feel the breath in your belly. Just feel it how the belly naturally releases because you're not upright. And then you're going to do a SH as you come, as you arch up into a cat. So it would be a seated cat as you do an SH. And you're going to follow the whole length of your breath And you'll also feel your abdominals engage as you naturally run out of air. You'll feel the abs moving toward the spine. But here we're really bringing them all the way. Now this is what we call cal normally. And the way that I like to do cal, my yoga mentor, Tara Gold, is a yoga therapist, and she doesn't think it's very good to sink the back like we usually do in cal. So instead, she likes to have the toes tucked under and think more of lengthening the back. So the cal is stretching its back. We're going to start here. First, the breath is free. So it's more of a tabletop back. But if you reach your bum away from your head, there's a really nice stretch. And then as we go into cat, if we do the SH, you can use an SH or an S. We're using an SH here. We will go up into cat. And then we'll come back down and breathe. And then we'll do the French, the je. You can do je or a z, but we're going a z or z, but we're going to do je. So come down, breathe, and now go je. Or come back down and let's try the Z. So that gives you a nice stretch, and you're also using the traditional hissing breath exercises, but we're also starting to become aware of what is support. Like, oh, wow, what's happening when I support? And also adding a nice stretch with it for the body. Then from there, I like to come down into cobra pose. And cobra pose, let's see, am I going to fit here? I know how I was going to do this.
Two mats.
Two mats, a two mat. Yeah, cobra pose, there are variations. So for this particular next one, you can just be in Sphinx. This is Sphinx, where you just have your elbows here. For some people, that's enough for their lower back. Regular cobra, your hands are down on the side here, and you push into your hands. Some people are here, you push up. I do not use any lifting of the head. The neck always stays in alignment with the spine. Now in yoga therapy, we have a really great cobra where your hands come forward. And this is so comfortable, you can relax for a long time here. Anybody can do this. It's quite interesting coming out with your hands on the corner of your mat. You can go all the way to the corners of your mat if you want. So each person will have their preference. Now in this exercise, first of all, I'm getting a beautiful stretch along the front of my abdominal muscles. My heart is open. You bring your heart through a little bit if you can. But in this pose, I like to do animal sounds because I will have a new student and I'm trying to teach support, and support is so subtle, feeling the core engaged. But if you do some dog barks, woof, 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 and you can do those just there, you'll feel your abs kicking immediately. Woof, 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 woof. And then I like to do some monkeys. You can do some crows. Crows are great for belt voice. Caw, caw, caw,
Ka!
caw. You can do some seals. Erp, erp,
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
erp. Oh, and my favorite, chickens. So I play with a bunch of animal sounds in this pose.
That is so fun.
Upright and upright. A student will always kick into support if they use animal sounds.
Talk about releasing fight or flight, because when you're that playful and making animal sounds, can't help but smile and laugh and get into playfulness.
Everybody laughs, and I'll say, feel those muscles. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
You
Laughter
always-
is great therapy.
I know, right? You always anecdote with child's pose.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If you can, I mean, everybody has their different versions that they can do with their body.
Yeah.
I used to think this was an easy pose until I became a yoga teacher. It's not that easy for a lot of people. So basically, you just want to come back and be able to round your back. It can just be this far. But in this position, with your head dropped, it's beautiful for meows. Meow, 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 meow,
Meow. Hmm.
meow. And super, super fun. And so in that, they get core engagement and resonance.
Yes.
When your head is actually down and you're on your forehead, you can't help but feel the voice.
Yeah, I could feel it in what we call the mask or the front area. That
Mhm.
meow.
And then in this pose, I will play with sounding of the spine. So from here, we actually start at the tailbone, and I will usually use a ooey, 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 ooey,
Mhm, mhm.
toy, 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 toy. Woo, 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 was great. It's like woo, 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 woo. It's a semi-occluded speech therapy exercise. If
Mhm.
you come here, you started at the tailbone. And you can really feel the whole body
Mhm.
engaged in the spine.
I love
And then,
that.
how am I doing on time? A couple of minutes. We have to do downward dog. Downward dog is amazing for sounding through the spine and out the head to get your high notes. So I may use whoop and poo in this. I'll use whoop.
Mhm.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. And if you engage your pelvic floor, like Mula Bandha, do you know of what Mula Bandha
Oh
is?
yeah, I love working with the bandas.
Yeah, the bandhas are amazing. They're called locks. Mula bandha is just a lift of the pelvic floor that both men and women can do. A lot of people don't know, but when this diaphragm lowers, this diaphragm lowers.
Mhm.
Unless you hold a lot of tension here. If you hold a lot of tension here, then it's not going to happen, and you need to do some psoas muscle things. But if you have a relaxed pelvic floor, which is a sling of muscles to hold all your abdominal contents in, when this comes down and this comes down, if you lift this, up with a little pressure, it exerts a force up against this diaphragm.
Mhm,
And it's
mhm.
a great way, woo, to get high notes. I have
Ah.
a friend who's a teacher at Scripps, and that is the basis of her high notes, is giving everybody Mula Bandha. What's a great way to mula bandha? Now I am hyper flexible, so if you
Oh
can't
yeah, I love
somebody
Malasana.
else, Malasana is amazing.
Mm.
In Malasana, you'll breathe all the way, the breath drops all the way down your back, which is interesting.
Mhm.
And you'll even feel your buttocks move. And in this pose, if you do a woo, you can't help but feel the pelvic floor lift. It'll do it on its own. Woo,
Ooh. Hmm.
and do a P on the end. Whoop.
Oh. Ooh.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's actually from speech therapy, and I'm crazy for it.
That is
They make people
fantastic.
with injured voices do whoops. And then we could go on and on and on.
Oh,
And
it's so good. And each thing is very specific, for a specific quality you're wanting to awaken.
awakening all these things within the body. Yeah, stretching, opening, and awakening. It's a very important word. Thank you
I
for that. That was
love it. Oh my goodness. What would you, for somebody who is not able to get into Malasana, is there another Mula Bandha pose that you might recommend for them?
actually, you know what is amazing
Mm.
is tree pose.
Ah, yeah,
If you do tree pose and you put your foot here
yeah.
and you press your foot in, but press your hip in together, and
Mhm.
your body naturally mula bandhas.
Uh-huh.
You don't even have to think about it.
There you go.
Thing I discovered, a lot of these things were just playing around that I discovered. And then I got into yoga therapy, and some of my friends that are yoga therapists, they now just teach yoga with sounding. They can't imagine teaching yoga without.
Oh, well, it makes so much sense. I mean, the voice being such a huge, such an integral part of the body
Mhm.
and such a mechanism for healing and moving energy and all that. So it makes sense that yoga would have sound.
Yeah, and then you can do, I have different things you can do. Uh, things, I actually always start a class with the Gayatri mantra.
Oh,
And then from there you can, there's certain sounds that I put with each pose that I feel is the best to activate that pose. But once the pose is activated and you're in it, then you can add mantra. You can add some vocalises, whatever is your thing. The Gayatri mantra is the mother of all mantras, it's called, and some of you may not know it. And I'll just say it quickly to end class.
please. Yeah.
Om Bhur Bhurva Svaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Deo Yona Prachodayat.
Mm.
So I know all of you out there, I threw a lot of stuff at you pretty quickly. But if you go to my website, vocalyoga.com, and you click under Awaken the Voice Summit, there will be, I'll actually have a sequence for you of the actual sequence of how I do a vocal yoga class. And you can try it out yourself. Or
Oh,
with,
that's so nice to share. Thank you. Thank you.
the book.
Yes, the book, please. I gotta tell the audience, I ordered that book a few years ago before you and I had actually connected, and it was really influential for me. So thank you.
Oh, thank
Thank
you. I
you.
really appreciate that.
So please share with us about the book, and you have a second one coming out as well.
Yes. So this was my first book, which makes it's kind of, it actually was created because my students that are, and some of them are teachers now, they asked me, would I write down everything I know, basically, or all the stuff that I knew at the time that I was teaching in class. So it's got voice science, it's got yoga, it's got a lot of breathing. It has a lot of um, pranayama, resonance, yoga toning, but there's a lot of voice science in it too. And yeah, it was reviewed by NATS, and they actually said that my techniques, along with some other vocal yoga teachers, that vocal yoga was actually a really good way to rehabilitate the voice. So that was very cool. And,
Mhm.
and then I have this
Mhm.
44 singing exercises, and they're both on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. This, if you're in New York, is at the Drama Bookstore in New York. And let's see, I will be in New York signing books at the Drama Bookstore in October. And it's thank you so much for having me, Rush. This has just been so fun to share with you.
Wow, thank you. You have such a spark and passion in the way that you share your work, and I really honor the way the wealth of knowledge you bring to it, the different methods and studies that have all contributed to your signature method. And it takes so much to do the work that you've done. I mean, we watch, it's like, oh, look, it's a playful pose, but there's so much that goes into creating that.
This is true.
It's amazing. And so bringing in the vocal pedagogy, voice science, the therapeutic aspects, all these different fields of study. And I know that with yoga, there are people that if you don't do something in alignment, it could result in injury or something like that. So the fact that you have very specific cues and very specific method is supportive for the voice, that we can trust that we're training our voice in a healthy way,
That's right.
and really awakening that joy and that fun. So yeah, thank you for your diligence in creating this method.
Thank you for having me come and speak and share it.
Oh, it was so much fun. I had a blast,
Okay.
and I feel just more energized and, everything as a result of just those few practices. So I will definitely be checking out your gift on your website, and I invite all of you listening to do the same. You can click the link and follow Heather's website and continue to follow her work.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Anything else that you'd like to share or to close?
No, thank you. No, it's
Okay.
been an honor to be here, and I hope everybody can benefit in some way from this interview that we've had this short amount of time.
Yes, I
Feel
think
free to
it's
reach out if anybody has any questions. Feel free to reach out. Very simple, voice@vocalyoga.com. But vocalyoga.com, I've had that site for over 20 years, and it's very easy to find.
okay. Great. Wonderful. Well, thank you again. Thank you all for listening. And I hope that you apply these practices and enjoy them. So we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.